And just like that, I think we're officially recording. I want to begin by welcoming a good friend of mine, Eric Ransavage of Ransavage and Dominguez, who does a variety of different types of law. He's an attorney, but does unlawful detainer, which is landlord tenant law. Eric, thank you for joining me here.
You're welcome.
I thought we would be brief, but with so much change that has been going on in the world of tenancy, of landlords and tenants, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of those changes. And also, now that we've had COVID involved, what does this all mean? Basically, the kind of the impetus for all of this is that the California Association of Realtors has come out with this new form that I thought we could share here and kind of show. And then I just wanted to briefly ask you a couple of questions, just as kind of a general overview for people that are landlords, people that are tenants. What are their rights? What does it look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Shall we start with the form? Does that
Sure.
Let's start with the form.
That makes sense.
So this is the new form that the California Association of Realtors has come out with. And I know you've reviewed this form. Without going through line by line, since the vast majority of people have no idea what this form even is, can you give me your thoughts and basically kind of give us a landscape of what's happening in the worlds of landlords and tenants?
Absolutely, Steve. And thank you for having me. Right. So at the beginning of this year in 2020, a law was passed, but it took effect, and it has a statewide effect of being basically a rent cap or rent control law, and also a law that requires, under certain circumstances, just cause in order to evict a tenant, or in order to not renew a lease with a tenant, or in order to end the tenancy with a particular tenant. So the law is complicated. It is somewhat confusing. So there are certainly exemptions to the law. So the biggest exemption that would apply to most of your clients and to many people in California will be single family homes. So generally these laws are going to apply to apartment buildings. So if you're a single owner that owns a single family home, these laws don't apply to you. They do apply to you, but the rules exempt you. And why do I say it like that? Because it is a little confusing, and that's why we're circling back to the form that the California Association of Realtors has come up with here. Because even where a property might be exempt, the onus is on the landlord to notify the tenant that the property is exempt.
So I'm going to interrupt you. So what you're saying here is that you're recommending, or I guess the California Association of Realtors is recommending, that every landlord get this document signed by their tenant. So if you're a tenant right now and you have not received this document, I guess you could request it. Or if there is, and I'm going to ask some questions in the forms of statements here. If I'm a tenant and my landlord is trying to evict me and they have not provided me with this document, it's going to be very difficult to evict me, right? I mean, it's difficult anyways because of the landscape, but is that semi-accurate?
Yeah, you're right. One affirmative defense, which means one way you could defend a case as a tenant, would be to say, hey, they never notified me about this new law. Even where maybe I was renting a single family home and the new law, I'm exempt under the new law. However, the law does require that you at least let the tenant know that they are exempt. So that's what California Association of Realtors has done here by creating this form. And basically they're telling you, or every landlord in California that's listening, get this form to your tenants now, or there's a few different timing things in there, but if you want to be really safe, get it to them now so that they are now on notice and that they see that there's this new law in effect, even if they're exempt from the new law, because, for example, maybe they live in a single family home. Because if somewhere down the line you're attempting to evict them for any number of reasons. If they say, hey, I never got this notice, they never told me that there was this new law in effect, that could be an affirmative defense that would cause that unlawful detainer action to get dismissed. So yes, my advice to any landlord would be to get this form or a similar form, because I see other attorneys have, private attorneys have their own particular forms that are like this. But you just want to let the tenant know, hey, there's this new law in effect, may or may not apply to you, because maybe it is a single family home, but we just have to let you know that the new law is in effect.
Gotcha. And so what this form then goes over is, I know there's been a discussion about, with COVID in place, that there is a moratorium on evictions, meaning that there is basically the courts in the past have been closed when it comes to unlawful detainer, landlord-tenant disputes and issues. However, this is kind of reviewing things that are reasons that it would be okay that a landlord would evict a tenant. I mean, looking at 1A here, default in payment of rent. And then scrolling down, there is no fault, just cause, and specific exemptions, and just kind of a breakdown. We don't need to go through the entirety of this form, but it's basically saying these are reasons why it is okay to evict a tenant right now, and these are reasons why it is not okay to evict a tenant right now. Correct?
Yes, generally if we're talking a typical apartment building, that's going to fall under the purview of this law. Right. There are, non-payment of rent is always going to be a basis to evict somebody. And then there's so that's at fault. The tenant would be allegedly at fault because they're not paying rent. But I'll give you one in here that's a little interesting, would be maintaining a nuisance, or there's another one in here about violating the lease. So you can say, hey, a tenant is violating the lease, I need to evict them. One interesting, one part about that is, though, you do need to give the tenant a chance to not violate the lease. In other words, cure whatever they've been doing wrong. So you have to give them notice of that before they leave. And most landlords are going to do that, right? They're not going to just go file a lawsuit. They're going to first send them a letter and say, hey, you're violating the lease by doing so-and-so. Please stop doing it.
Like a noise violation.
Right.
If the tenant is being loud, they're disrupting the HOA. First, as a landlord, you'd give the tenant notice and say, here's written notice, you're being too loud. I'm not evicting you yet, but it's essentially, this is your warning. Okay. Right. So I'm not going to share this. We're not going to look at that document the whole time, and I certainly want to respect your time. But what I thought I would do is just ask you some really general questions. I do want to provide the general public with your contact information, so that if they have questions, both on the landlord side and on the tenant side, that they can connect with you. So we basically said, as a landlord right now, got to first and foremost provide tenant with either that form or a similar form that's drawn up by an attorney. Well, a couple of questions for you right now. Number one, I'm a landlord. My tenant's lease is expiring. I want them out. The tenant wants to stay. Is that, it seems to me, not knowing much about anything, hey, the expiration of a lease, sorry, I don't want to renew my lease with you. Can you get somebody out, or is it more complex than that?
It's going to be, if it's a exempt property, meaning, again, typically like a single family home, this new law does not apply to that. And you should be able to let them know, hey, the lease is up, and at the end of the lease, I'm not going to renew the lease with you. If it's a apartment building, this new law will apply to that. And no, you cannot just tell them, I'm not going to renew the lease with you, and you need to, our tenancy is over. This new law will apply, and it will basically say you cannot, just for no reason not renew the lease with that particular tenant if it falls under the new law, which generally an apartment building is going to fall under that new law.
So as an agent, I've heard a lot about this moratorium on evictions that's going on right now related to COVID, essentially, that the courts have been closed. I think you've told me that the courts are starting to reopen in different sectors. I guess my question is, if I am a landlord that has a tenant that is doing something illegal, like whatever, doing something illegal that would be a basis for breaking the lease and getting them out of the lease, Is it even possible to evict somebody right now? How does that look?
Right. At this point, the short answer is no. So we've got this state law that just passed, and that's what we've been talking about. But then there's the mechanism to enforce the state law, which are the county courts. So each county is going to be a little bit different. San Diego County has been closed, and the San Diego County also has passed a moratorium on evictions specifically, which means even if the courts were open today to go in and file a new case, you could not file a new case on an eviction action or an unlawful detainer action. That's going to still take some time. And even if you could file and get a judgment to get someone evicted, right now the sheriff's department in San Diego is not evicting anyone. And the last I've heard from them is even if they have a court order in their office and they're ready to go out and lock somebody out that has been there now for a number of months, they're not going to start doing that again probably until August. So really for landlords, it may be that, filing a new case, a new eviction action for someone that's, stayed there unlawfully or beyond their tenancy period, those cases may not be able to get filed until August or September, and then you would get trial dates after that. And so, yeah, it's still, as of the short answer to your question, Steve, right now there's nothing you can do. We're still monitoring the court.
It's so interesting because, of course, as a realtor, I've commonly talked about the benefits of investment property, and there's a lot of downside for landlords right now. That if I'm a landlord and you're a tenant, I could put you in the unit with a security deposit and first month's rent, and you could stop paying rent, either COVID related or not, and put me and handcuff me and put me in a real tricky spot because I can send you many, many warnings, but when it comes to actually getting you out, it's difficult. This is great. I really appreciate this. One final question for you. I do want to respect your time.
Yep.
What kind of clientele what would be a good business? What would be a good referral for you? What would be a good type of business for you? If I'm Joe homeowner, Joe tenant right now, and I'm watching this, what would be a reason that I should call you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. The other, we've been talking about this law generally. Every municipality has its own twists as well. So, and it's one reason why the form that you showed me from California Association of Realtors actually at the bottom says, if you've got questions, call an attorney that's familiar with your local jurisdiction, whether that's Oceanside or Vista or San Diego County or the city of San Diego. So that's one thing you do want to do. These rules don't apply across the board to every jurisdiction, although they're very similar. So, we help both landlords and tenants. I'd say right now at this point, there's obviously a lot of change, a lot of confusion. So we're open to take a call or referral from anyone that's got a question, whether, if it's a landlord and they want to know what their rights are, or a tenant and they want to know what their rights are. So there's definitely a lot of questions out there, and we're answering those for folks, and we're happy to help.
Excellent. Well, really appreciate your time, Eric. I'll put your contact information in the comments when I post this to Facebook. Real quick, can you just tell us the phone number or an email or both that is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, our phone number is 760-230-2911. Once again, it's Ransavage and Dominguez. You can reach me on email if you want directly, Eric with a C, at rdlawteam.com. So RD is in Ransavage Dominguez, lawteam.com.
Fantastic. Eric, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we will definitely be in touch.
You're welcome, Steve.